The values of them have gone, in my view, ridiculous, and that's all to do with the never-ending price or value or so-called value increases of most other classic Porsches. And of course, you do have the crowd that believe the only Porsche that has ever been built is an air-cooled 911. You know the guys, they wear their short sleeve t-shirts outside their long sleeve t-shirts, big watches, funny hats. Hi there, my name is Rob Annette and this is my 1973 Porsche 914. First time I ever laid eyes on one of these was as a young guy in America with a friend of mine, and we were at Venice Beach, and I looked up and on the side of the road parked was this square boxy looking strange car, and I said to my mate, "What on earth is that?" And we looked at it closely, and by surprise we've seen a Porsche badge on it, and at that point I thought, wow, that's something so unique. I've never seen one before, and you would hardly see them around. Well, you never seen them in Australia. But at that point, I thought, wow, that is so special. It just started off. It gave me a desire to own one day, and quite some time later, I ended up with this car. So this car came from California as well, ironically. They only ever built them with left-hand drive, and this car was owned in the States, and a friend of mine from the Porsche Club of New South Wales was in America. He met a girl, they fell in love, and they decided to get married and come back to Australia. But part of the deal was that if you come back to Australia with me, you've got to bring your car, and this 914 was her car. So the car came to Australia with them. Its original colour was Zanzibar green, but whenever she had it sprayed in red, and so when it came to Australia, the car was actually red. At that point then, they kept the car for quite some time, and it was sold to another Porsche Club member who a lot of people in the club would know, Bob Wims, who has a very successful Porsche repair business in Sydney. and his wife Kathy fell in love with the car, and she decided that she wanted to buy it from the owners, and eventually she did. She wanted her husband Bob to paint it or have it painted yellow for her, which he did, and that was her everyday shopping cart. I used to see the car at our local shops. I didn't live too far from them in Sydney, and I would see the car at the local shops all the time. And at that point, when I realised, that they owned it, I asked that question, which I'd always do: if you ever want to sell that car, Bob, let me know. And a few years later, he did ring and say, Rob, are you serious about buying a 914? I said yes, and we shook on it and paid him some money. And the car was ours. Part of the deal at the time was that, I offered it to her, was she was going to miss the car, but she was tiny little thing. She was only 4 foot tall, and to get her to reach the pedals in the car, they built special seat rails so that the seat could be moved far enough forward so that she could reach the pedals. The problem is, whenever we bought the car and we went to pick it up, I couldn't get in the car to drive it home. The seat rails were permanently mounted, and even with the seat right back, I couldn't fit my legs in, and I couldn't drive it home. So we had to get Kathy to drive the car back to our place, and at that point we drove her home, and then the next day I had to pull the seat out, pull all the seat rails out, and put the seat back to its original position. I did promise her though that whenever she wanted to use the car, not on an everyday basis, but mainly for the club concourse every year. So I offered her to drive the car to the concourse every year. So every year I'd have to put the seat rails back in, move the seat all the way forward, so she could come around, pick the car up and take it to the concourse. So until we moved out of Sydney, she would do that every year, and she really appreciated it and enjoyed it. So the car was yellow whenever I bought it, and Bob Wims is a great fella, but he's tighter than I am, and his idea of a paint job was as cheap as you can get it and just cover up the old colour. So the paint has never been its great feature, but I call it a 3 metre car. From about 3 metres, it looks fine, and I've never really done much with it as far as how it looks. I put the stripes on it and put the CV lights on the front, but apart from that, it's pretty much how I bought it. And when you buy a car from a mechanic, it can be a bit of a nightmare. So I did some work on the brakes and put new tyres on it and so on. and that's how it came about. The car itself is a 1.7 litre. It has a Volkswagen Type 4 combi motor in it, which Porsche changed a few bits and pieces on it to make it a little bit more powerful, but it basically is a Type 4 VW combi engine. I did have the car being used by a friend of mine once, and it came back from a drive and it sounded a little rattly, and I thought, oh, what's happened here? What's he done? So after we put it up on the hoist and had a listen to it, we thought, it doesn't sound right. So I took it upon myself to rebuild the engine myself. So it's the first time. I'd built lots of motorbike engines in the past and bits and pieces, but I'd never completely stripped down a car engine. So I put it up on the hoist, pulled the engine out, pulled it all down, and to find that the bearings on the camshaft had cracked and parts were missing, so they were obviously going to go through the motor. So that was it. Pulled it all apart. Found some original, still in the Marley boxes, pistons for it. Had to rebore it because one of the pistons were actually cracked. So because I couldn't find the same size pistons, I could only find oversized pistons. I had to put bigger pistons in it, so had the cylinders all rebored. Put it all back together again, and this took a year or so to do, waiting for parts in the States and getting things done, like getting the barrels bored and so on. So eventually I got it all back together, and one very nervous afternoon I thought, right, I pulled the ignition off it and had all the oil in it, turned it over for a while just to make sure I got some oil pressure up. And then I ran out of excuses. I thought, right, I'm going to have to start this thing and just see how I go. So hooked the ignition back up again, closed my eyes, turned the key, and within about 2 revolutions the little thing fired into life. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. It works. It took me a long while to rev it. Every time I took it for a drive, I'd go, remember who built this engine, Robbie? Go easy. Anything could happen, but that was 3 years ago now, and it still runs fine, doesn't burn any oil, and it's still great fun. Not the most powerful thing in the world, wouldn't pull a skin off a rice pudding, but as they say, it goes like a little go-kart. You've got to keep the momentum up, you've got to keep your foot into it. If you ease up, especially going up a hill, it's a long, tedious, ride back to full speed again. I have hill climbed the car, believe it or not. When I lived in Sydney, I brought the car up here with my little 911, the little blue one, and we entered them into Speed on Tweed at Murwillumbah. So that was good fun. I've also taken it to some track days at Queensland Raceway, and any of you who know Queensland Raceway know it's pretty much a horsepower track, and this would take me a week to do a lap. So I got about 3 laps in before it got dark. But again, I just held my foot flat, and it was a lot of fun. It is, in fact, many people say the original Porsche Boxster. It's mid-engine, it's a flat engine, its balance is lovely. The Boxster has obviously a power roof. This is a Targa top, so the top does come off and it stores neatly in the back boot. So it's it's the original Boxster, I would say, and it's all the better for it. Great little car. It's amazing these days just how popular these little things have become. There's never been that many of them in Australia. Most of the ones that have been kept original and left-hand drive. I sometimes wish that mine was still original left-hand drive, but it makes it so much easier to drive on our roads, of course, like this. But the values of them have gone, in my view, ridiculous, and it's all to do with the never-ending price or value, or so-called value increases of most other classic Porsches. And of course you do have the crowd that believe the only Porsche that has ever been built is an air-cooled 911. You know the guys, they wear their short-sleeve t-shirts outside their long-sleeve t-shirts, big watches, funny hats. And they don't seem to accept that there is any other Porsche in the world but an air-cooled 911. Watching the prices of these things on different platforms, it's just amazing how much people are asking for them. And it is a classic car. It gets a lot of attention wherever it goes. People ask the question, what on earth is that? And apart from the huge Porsche decals down the side, you've got to say to them, oh, it's a little Porsche, or V-dub Porsche, really. So yeah, they're quite amazed that Porsche had built this car. No one's really seen them or noticed them until now, that of course they're becoming quite popular because of the massive rise in classic cars. But yeah, I love it. Only its mother could love it, they say, but I love it. It's great fun, and I've owned it now for probably 15 years, and I've loved every minute with it. It's been great.